Good morning. Everyone, welcome to City Club Missoula's January Forum on College Athletics, NIL, and the Transfer Portal. I'm Alex Parklands. I have the great privilege of serving as chair of the City Club Missoula Board of Directors in 2025. Thank you all for being here today. City Club's mission is to bring together people to inform and inspire citizens on issues vital to the Missoula area community through public forums that encourage the discussion of new ideas and the free exchange of thought. We have a deep commitment to civility and civil discourse, even when discussing challenging topics or topics that people are passionate about, such as Grizzly athletics. Some sincere thank yous are in order. First, let me thank Missoula Community Access Television for recording all our forums as part of their media assistance grants to nonprofit organizations. MCAT serves our community on cable channels 189 and 190, and you can view past forums on MCAT's YouTube channel. A special thank you to our executive level sponsors, Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank. Our executive level sponsors are key partners in helping expand audience access and public awareness of upcoming forums. We are grateful to all of our sponsors at all sponsorship levels for their generosity and advocacy for our mission. We invite you to join as a sponsor or as a member by visiting cityclubmissoula.com. Thank you to our board of directors, and especially our administrator, Jenny Rohrbach, who keeps things running smoothly behind the scenes. City Club would also like to acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people, some of whom may be present with us today at this forum. Today we honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. Finally, 2025 marks the 20th anniversary of City Club Missoula. Thank you to all those who have participated in our forums, provided sponsorships, and volunteered their time as board members over the years. We owe our current success to you. And now on to our panelists for this forum. Kent Haslam was named the 17th Director of Athletics at the University of Montana on September 17, 2012. Haslam leads a department of more than 350 student athletes and nearly 90 full-time staff and coaches. Grizzly Athletics sponsors 15 NCAA Division I sports and operates on a $24 million annual budget, nearly 65% of which is self-generated primarily through ticket sales, sponsorship agreements, and fundraising. Kent's time in Montana has been marked by significant academic success by Grizzly student athletes, a major overhaul of athletic facilities, and numerous conference championships. Kent is a graduate of Brigham Young University with a degree in broadcast journalism and Japanese. He earned a master's degree in educational leadership from Northern Arizona University. He's married to Holly, and they are proud parents of 5 children. Marcus Welnel was born and raised in Helena, Montana, where he met his now wife Lexi and attended the University of Montana to play Division I football. Marcus achieved his childhood dream by wearing the coveted number 37 jersey for Montana, which represents the spirit of Montana: hard work, dedication to the team, and tough play on the field. While playing football, he earned a bachelor's degree in finance, minors in both mathematics and economics, a master's in business administration, and a master's in business analytics. One of his capstone projects, he studied the analytics of NIL and NIL collectives nationwide. From there, he helped start and now manages Good Old Grizzlies, the official NIL collective for the University of Montana. Let's welcome our panelists.
Thank you. This works, right? Perfect. Is it okay if I stand? I hate sitting and talking. I might sit down when we go back. But just to follow up on my intro, I guess, kind of, when I say NIL or NIL collectives, raise of hands, who knows what I'm talking about? Oh, that's actually way better than I thought.
Better than I know. I don't know anything about it.
We're still learning, that's for sure. This thing's gonna fly. But what might help? It works. For me, it's hard to hear. So I was an athlete at Montana from 2017 to 2022. So when I first showed up to Montana in 2017, Ken told me very specifically I wasn't allowed to get a hot dog, I wasn't allowed to shoot a commercial, I wasn't allowed to make any sort of money because I was a student athlete at the University of Montana, outside of, working at a bank or doing something. Even then, you had to be submitted, and there's a lot of rules and regulations to it. Well, that all flipped on July 1st, 2021, when the NCAA allowed college athletes to make money in their name, image, and likeness, which is what NIL stands for. So when you see Shaq in those commercials for the General, like that's using his name, image, and likeness. When you see, who are some athletes right now? Junior Bergen working with Lithia Lithia Jeep Chrysler Dodge, like that's Junior Bergen using his NIL. So when I was passionate about, because when I first got here I wasn't allowed to do it, and then as rules switched. And then right away at the university level, we didn't kind of really have a system in place. I mean, no one really did. So after that, I was kind of really passionate about putting together some sort of, NIL collective or NIL help for our student athletes to be able to put something together and be able to use. So can we, actually, I gotta do it. I got it. So with NIL collectives, so NIL, it first really changed when collectives came about. So what collectives are is a way for boosters and donors to be able to put money together into a pot, essentially, to be able to pay out our players. Use it as a very tool of recruiting. So when NIL first came about, the idea from the upper level was, we're just gonna have athletes work with the car dealerships, work with banks, work with all this different stuff, and they can just go make money like they finally wanted. Well, I think down in the SEC they figured out, well, if we put all this money into a pot, we can all pay our athletes out, and we can use it as a tool for recruiting, which they did, and then everyone then followed. So now we have an NIL collective here at the University of Montana that everyone can contribute to, businesses can work with, do everything like that, so we can pay our student athletes. So this is just a little graph to explain like how, at the end of the day, the athletes end up getting payment. So in the first column, like businesses can work with the athletes. So Blackfoot can work with the student athlete, and they can pay them directly to go do different deals and ads and everything like that. The business, Blackfoot, we're just going to keep using Blackfoot here, shout out, they can work through the collective, Good Old Grizzlies, and then we can pay the athletes. So they can go through us, we can do a lot of different deals, control it, do all the rules and regulations, and then pay the athlete. But what you'll see here is 82%, that's an actually outdated stat as of now, that was from late this summer. Mostly it's just collective going to athletes. So it's boosters and donors putting money into Good Old Grizzlies, into whatever the Alabama's collective is, whatever it is, to then be able to use and pay student athletes in more of a recruiting concept. So when athletes are going around and getting these payments, a lot of them is coming from just these collectives that are donors and boosters putting money together to be able to pay our athletes. Let's keep going then. 81%. And then, so like I said, 81% is coming from collectives. One other thing, I'm kind of bouncing around. This will be a lot more helpful when people can ask questions at the end, but this graph is kind of terrible. I like analytics and graphs, so I kind of understand, but I understand it's really bad. It just shows that the schools that have really got behind NIL collectives and NIL in general have really kind of brought themselves to the next tier. So schools that kind of say, we don't really want to do NIL, we don't really believe in it, blah, 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 like they're slowly starting to kind of fall behind. And this graph is from summer again, of course. Really, all of it doesn't matter. It's just saying like the schools that really buy into what NIL is, they are starting to succeed because it's kind of leveling the playing field for people to be able to put more money into these things or not put money into them. I think this is just literally my last slide, and then Kevin and I can talk about more things. So this kind of shows just from a dollar standpoint of where we're at, and this is very outdated because of the House settlement that Ken will probably talk more about. So this was late summer. They projected that Power 4 conferences were paying out $14 million from their NIL collectives. So that number is going to increase to $20.5 million once this House settlement passes, if and when it does. So you can kind of just get a scope of the amount of money that's being spent in college athletics. So if you move all those numbers up, the level that we're at in Division I right there, we should be about, roughly about $2 million in our collective being paid out to the entire student, all of our student athletes. And I can tell you right now, we are nowhere near $2 million. So just to be able to kind of keep up with the Joneses of where all the other college athletic programs are right now. And we'll speak a lot more about the transfer portal and stuff, but for reference, so like our athletes right now, they have a great season. It's happening all around the FCS. They're all Americans, doing really great. Traditionally in the past, you'd expect them to be a Grizz the following year. Maybe every now and then someone would move up when they get a great opportunity, but now, they're playing for us, they're having a great season. Well, they're high school head coach, their girlfriend, their mom, their whoever is all getting calls all day long saying, hey, if you come to this school, we're going to pay you $500,000. And they're like, oh wow, that's a lot of money versus what I'm making here. So we're just continually seeing our players getting calls after calls after calls saying, hey, we have a lot of money to dish out. Would you want to come, move up and make a lot more money? So it's starting to slowly affect us here in Montana with our athletes and the transfer portal being wide open, that these dollar amounts are getting pretty big from these other colleges. So we just need to be able to kind of stay competitive here at this level to do what we can. We're never going to be the Alabama or Texas where everyone's going to be driving Lamborghinis and Bugattis and all that kind of stuff around town, living in penthouses. We're just trying to. Missoula's an expensive place to live, and our student athletes, they're well taken care of. They have a lot of great benefits, but being able to pay them a little bit now that we're able to and kind of keep them here in Montana is a very important thing for us. Really kind of just rambled there for a while.
No, you're good. Now I get to give the athletic director's perspective
Yeah.
on all this and how this all works. So it's a pleasure to be here. I know many of you and I've talked about this quite a bit. Let's talk about how we got to where we're at. I look down here at Dr. Cook and I think about the days of college athletics and where we were and what we did. And candidly, the reason I got into college athletics was because I love working at a university. I love watching young men and young women take their talent, trade that for an opportunity to earn a degree and do great things. But part of the reason we're at where we're at is because of the stubbornness of college athletics and their inability or their unwillingness to adapt and change. The pendulum was so far over on the benefit of the university and the NCAA. And the NCAA is a group of us. We're in the NCAA. We make those rules. But they were so strict that eventually those student athletes are looking around saying, hold it, that conference just signed a multi-billion-dollar television deal and I can't even do an ad for First Security Bank, see Bill right there, and make $100? Or I can't stop at a tailgate and eat a hot dog at the end of the game? And so what happens then is lawyers get involved and litigation happens and there's this huge pot of money that's being generated now and players are saying, why? What's going on? And so what happened was that pendulum now has swung so far over on this side that we're really in pretty much a state of chaos in how this works. And we're left to kind of sort this thing out. This really started with Ed O'Bannon. He played for UCLA. He was a basketball player at UCLA. His son was sitting down playing an EA Sports video game, college basketball video game, and there he was playing his dad on this video game, and dad was like, okay, my name's not there, that's my number, that's my face, that's my jersey. It doesn't say Ed O'Bannon, it says player, that's me. And so the whole idea was, whoa, why am I not getting compensated for that? And I think all reasonable people would say, you're right. Years and years beyond you've moved on, there's still, EA Sports is still benefiting, and the schools are benefiting from the use of your name and your image and your likeness. And so that really is what started all of this move towards there's got to be some sort of compensation. I'll also fully admit, and we're not doing this here, but certainly as salaries for coaches skyrocketed, and as coaches were able to move around and do what they wanted and coach where they wanted to go, but yet student athletes were stuck, not stuck, but they were at one school unable to transfer. Coach leaves, but I can't leave, or I've got to sit out a year and I can't play a year. The punishments seem to just be not really well thought out. And so this is what started this whole thing. This is why we're at where we're at. So now we're literally in a stage where the transfer portal, it's not some magic place that you put your name in and suddenly you magically end up in some other great situation. But I checked today, the transfer portal is essentially, what I like to say is, it's kind of like Match.com. I hate to say it, I've never been on it, but I am playing football at this school, and it's a database that says I want to transfer, and I'm cleared to transfer. You're open to contact me. And it's a database that's managed by the NCAA that all the coaches can get in and see and look through the players, who they are and who they want. There are today, I checked this morning, 5,096 names in the transfer portal for football, Division I football only. Roughly, quick math, probably about 25,000 total Division I football players, regardless of scholarship status. I think some could be walk-on, those things. But 5,100 roughly are in the transfer portal. Now, some of them have been matriculated, some of them have been claimed. You see, we're publicly announcing who we claim and who we take. But that's a lot of young men in one sport in the middle of the or between semesters moving to schools, right? So let's not even talk about how that impacts their ability to complete degrees and ability to continue on with their education. And that's only one transfer portal. We get one more in April. So there's another transfer portal window coming as well, and that's just one sport. So that's what the transfer portal has brought about, and it's brought about this somewhat bidding war when it comes to college athletes and their services. Another just part of the challenges that we face, house settlement. House is the name of a young man. Whenever we start to talk about, we talk about Alstons, we talk about houses, we talk about O'Bannons. There's people behind those. House is a young man from Arizona State. He was a swimmer. He sued the NCAA saying that he should be able to make money on his name and his image and his likeness, and that he deserves back pay for all those years that these student athletes were not compensated. So the house settlement has worked its way through. You can go home and Google house settlement if you want to read all about it. But the upper levels essentially are now, once it's in the Ninth Circuit Court, Judge Wilkin, pending settlement or pending agreement in April that will allow universities now to actually share revenue with their student athletes and set aside a pool of money up to $22 million that then can get shared by student athletes. Our budget's $24 million. We're not going to be sharing $22 million. That's a really quick, even my bad math from college, we're not going to survive that. But it's going to allow these opportunities now for universities to just flat out pay and enter into agreements with their student athletes. So what does this challenge bring for us? What does this do? Look, college athletics is shifting. It's changing. It's changed dramatically over the years. The NCAA started because presidents got together and there were too many injuries and deaths happening in college football that there needed to be regulation over it. It's back Teddy Roosevelt days. And so that's where the NCAA started. The NCAA has gone through ups and downs and had dramatic lawsuits with television rights, antitrust, all these things. I am a proponent of college athletics, and I don't say that just because I'm the athletic director at the University of Montana. I say that because I think it plays a role in higher education in the United States of America. There's no other country on earth that combines high-level academics and high-level athletics and allows those things for student athletes to utilize that talent and exchange it for a degree. And I believe strongly in it, that it teaches things that cannot be taught any other place. And so I'm a proponent of college athletics. I like the good old days. Sure, you know, we saw a lawsuit about the junior college and getting an extra year. I played 1 year of junior college baseball, so I'm expecting to get one more year back somewhere from somebody so that I can play another year. I say that tongue in cheek.
Can you play football?
No. Well, I can, but I don't. But anyway, there will be changes that are going to happen, and it will look different. But at its core, it still, to me, needs to stay rooted in academics, rooted in eligibility, and those are things that the NCAA, that we as institutions can continue to protect. Here's our biggest challenges. Number one is transparency in NIL. If you noticed what Marcus said, these numbers, they're kind of fuzzy, and you know, we got media members. I actually asked Coulter he probably hears more rumors than anybody, but so-and-so's making $1 million, so-and-so's making $2 million, so-and-so got offered $500,000. All of that stuff nobody knows because there's no transparency in it. There's none whatsoever. And so that's part of the problem, is that you have other people that are kind of juicing the system and calling coaches and saying, well, this coach offered 50, if you can match it, you can get him, and the coach is panicked and, well, I don't know if we can. And so that's part of the problem, is transparency. So we've got to solve that problem right there. And then the other is some kind of antitrust safe harbor for universities to operate in, and that will most likely take some kind of federal government intervention or something like that, where we can operate in. I spent a number of years working in professional baseball. It's scary, but I feel like I'm right back into that area where you start to say, what are we going to collectively bargain? What are we not going to collectively bargain? What's the first round draft pick going to get paid? And I hate to see it go that way, but I think there's got to be some method that we hit where people we can cover both areas and preserve the educational experience. So, with that said, trying to think if I've got any other really fun numbers. I'll let you all, I think just asking questions of us is probably going to be the best path to go, because I could stand up here and talk about a lot of stuff and you'd probably not understand the minutia of it, and you'd start to, this doesn't make any sense. So I'm fine with questions, and however you want to handle that, Alex. Let's take it.
We're going to get a slide up here pretty quickly, but yeah, we're going to break for table talk a bit early today. So we're going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes to discuss among your table mates and formulate a question that will be asked to our panelists. So take some time, discuss, introduce yourselves, formulate one question, and you're going to appoint somebody from your table to ask the questions. We'll have board members coming around with microphones to ask those questions, to basically share the mic with you so you can ask questions to Kent and Marcus. Also, we did over-order food this month, so if you are interested in having seconds or just grabbing a plate, go ahead and do that. The pasta's really good today. So feel free to do that. We'll see you in about 10-15 minutes. Okay, everybody, I think we're about ready to we're going to finish up their discussions here and have an appointed question asker. Be great. Just a reminder that please keep your questions respectful. Avoid making statements or long biographies. Avoid multi-part questions if you can. We might get a chance to get to a couple questions per table. We probably have the time for that. So any members of the media, please save your questions until after the forum. I think Marcus can stay a bit longer. I believe Kent has an obligation he needs to run off to, but if you're a member of the media, please wait till the end of the forum for that. We have 2 board members walking around with microphones. So if you're ready to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get right to it.
Our question is, how big is the UM collective and how does it compare to other schools in Arkansas?
All right. Did I not say that one was coming?
I didn't know that was gonna be. Is this on?
There you go.
I did not know that'd be the very.
I knew I wasn't going crazy the first time. I didn't know that was the very first question I was going to get. So, what I'll tell you, there's a transparency problem for sure of what schools have and what schools don't have. And what also is, it's kind of a recruiting and schools that obviously have more money, student athletes would rather go there than when places don't have enough money. So what we can't really do is publicly say how much we have in our collective, because the neighbors across the state would love to know how much we have, and I would love to know how much they have to be able to recruit against them. So what I will say is we don't have enough. Not even, so if we want to compare ourselves in the FCS realm, I would say we're in, we like to say the top 4 programs, the 2 Montana schools, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, I mean, obviously more of the Dakota schools. There's a lot of good programs, but we'd like to be kind of up in that top 4 realm. And I think we're right there where we need to be. I think, if you're, this is just my personal opinion, obviously, because it's not transparent and there's no like facts about it, but if you're asking me, I think NDSU is doing really well. I think they have a lot of money. And I think the other Dakota and Montana schools are doing, they're behind them, but they're doing well. But I mean, if we want to compete and move up to, you know, whatever college athletics is going to look like in the future, you know, the Mountain West or whatever that, you know, tier 2 level is, we are well behind kind of that Mountain West tier 2 level of, you know, spending. And I think, you know, I kind of just keep going off, but with the House settlement here is we're kind of go away more so from the collectives making the payments to the universities. So that's going to increase the budget for a lot of schools. So a lot of schools are operating right now, you know, about 15 million or whatever it is. So those schools are going to move up to 20 million. A lot of those Mountain West programs, maybe they can only pay out 3 million out of their collective. They're going to move up to, you know, 10, because it'll be a lot, you know, maybe easier is the wrong word, but if you can just, the schools can just directly make the payments, then there's just a lot more money to be paid.
Short answer, not gonna tell you. No, and I don't know. I honestly don't know, but yeah, he answered that well. That's part of the problem, is we need some transparency.
Sure. We heard that the University of Nebraska offered Junior Bergen, football player, a lot of money to transfer, but he did not. So what did it take to keep him?
Talk about
I know
With the roar of Washington Grizzlies Stadium,
Yeah, he was promised a
statue outside.
No, not at all. Leave that none. Again, you're gonna hate this answer. I can't tell you. Just because it's, you know, it's someone at the end of the day. Like if I knew someone's salary at their job, I'm not just gonna publicly say, hey, this is what it took to keep, you know, that person there or whatever. What I can't say, and I just speak to Junior's character. He was offered, you know, a decent amount of money to go somewhere else. Nebraska may or may not have been one of the schools. That I cannot confirm nor deny, but you know, the fact that he decided to stay here and, you know, play for us, obviously we, through the help of a lot of fans and donors in the collective, we were able to, you know, get some money, pay him to be able to stay here, kind of make it worth his time. But you know, it's just a testament to him. And you know, you look at, you know, athletes moving forward. There's going to be some athletes that got to make tough decisions, whether they want to go take a lot of money, go somewhere else, or they want to stay in Montana and, you know, play in front of the most passionate fans and build their legacy instead of moving up and taking more money.
some of it you can see too. There's been a couple of really highly publicized cases where they didn't, the universities and the collectives didn't come through on what they paid. And there's plenty that you've seen happen, and so that's part of the issue here is the athletic department sits separate from all this that's going on, and that's what makes for a really, really awkward kind of situation.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the honesty with that question about the transparency on the amount of money available. So I think our table was wrestling with the fact that UM's already really good at a lot of things. And so by having great athletes, we don't get a lot better, we get a little bit better. So the pie is already pretty big here. And now we're going to divide it amongst sort of more pieces. It's not like we're going to see a huge windfall of new revenue. So where does this money come from the community to support this as the ask is made? It's pretty obvious to us that the direct payment business to athlete is a really easy trade of marketing for me, money for you. But on those others, is that charitable giving? Is it competing with other charities in town? Is it competing with the UM Foundation, or is it some other form? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we do. We ask a lot. I don't know if you noticed in the bio of my introduction that 65% of our, roughly 65% of our operating budget is self-generated. That comes from ticket sales, that comes from foundation funds, that comes from sponsorship agreements. We're a unicorn when it comes to that. We really are. We have counterparts in our Big Sky conference that those same numbers would be 10% of it's self-generated, 12% of it's self-generated. The rest of it comes from the university in support of institutional support or student fees. And so, Crane, you make a really good point. We're already stretching all of you as much as we can stretch you. We ask you to do a lot. We ask fans from Sydney, Montana to pack up their trucks and cars and come to football games. and sit here and buy hot dogs and pay for parking and cheer us on and buy a Grizz shirt and get back, spend the night, then get in there, go home. We don't make a ton of money off of television, and so we've got to have you here. So to answer that question, there's going to have to be an institutional strategy that includes all of those things. The level of institutional support may have to increase. The donor contributions are going to have to increase. Ticket prices very well could have to increase. And at what point do we push you over the edge and you say, it's too much, I'm staying home and watching this thing on TV, they're all on for it, I can watch any of them. Watch them on ESPN Plus. So that's that fine line we sit. That's what I get petrified about, to be candid with you, is at what point do you all say, I'm out. And so to answer your question, it's going to have to be a balance of all of those things. And then what we're hoping for is a little more structure in the future that allows us to know exactly, how big of the pool do we want to swim in? Is this a business we want to get into? And is this where we want to take the university? Is this what we want to go and we want to do? And those are decisions going to have to be made. But to answer your questions, have to come from a lot of different places to really have this. It's got to be an institutional strategy.
Kent, I'd like to follow up on that one a little bit, because one thing I see is that fans are really becoming a little less connected to the student athletes because of the revolving door. And so how can the university deal with that to try to keep fan enthusiasm up and keep people like Junior Bergen who want to play to the roar of the crowd? How can we deal with that with this whole new environment?
Well, I would plead with all of you and everyone that hears my voice that's a member of Grizz Nation is to please stay connected. Don't give up on us. The connection to the athlete is not unique for just the fan. It's the coach, it's an administrator like Marcus, Saw Marcus come in as a young whippersnapper out of Helena, right? And grow and stay connected to us and do great things. So that disconnect is not unique just for you all. We all feel it too. Our professors feel it. Our support staff feels it. Our university administrators feel that disconnect as well. So I guess I would plead with this group is please stay and help us. Please come buy a ticket. Please stay in the stadium. Please cheer for us. In this business, and it is a business, winning solves a lot of problems. Winning solves a lot of problems. And so we have big scoreboards there at the end for a reason. We look up at them at the end and see who wins. And then we've got to do our part to make sure that we're winning and we're succeeding and we're doing it in a way that attracts fans and keeps them connected with what we're doing. So, yeah, it's a scary spot, but stay with us, please.
Hey, Kent, Mark. So the third party the collective is a third party, right? It's not associated with the university?
Correct, as of now. Well, yeah, it is.
Sure. So our question was, is there a way that you could take those funds and basically invest them in a low-risk market where it would kick off interest or dividends that could build a sustainable model so you're not having to raise this money every year and hit up new donors and past donors? I think that's a much more sustainable model. But then you get into who's managing that fund and what's their scrape and all of that. Is that on the table? Is that illegal?
I'll let Cam speak. In theory, the problem that we're facing right now is all the money that's coming into the collective is being paid out to our athletes. So we don't really have enough money to have a pot set aside or an endowment to kind of grow and to use the money to kick off to then pay student athletes. If we ever had that much money, that'd be a great problem to have. But right now, the money that's coming in, boosters and donors and businesses are giving to us. We are then taking that and distributing it to the student athletes, and we're looking back, and there's not much left after that. So as far as the endowment and the rules and everything like that,
Yeah.
So part of this house settlement will allow athletic departments and universities to be much more involved in this. So let me just paint an ideal scenario. And I say this recognizing that ideal scenarios oftentimes don't come to fruition. But when the house settlement kicks in and we're able to share revenue, that revenue can come directly from the university. And so then we can get far more involved in literally cutting checks to student athletes. And so then that would allow us to manage, and you could offset that with donor funds, you could offset that with revenue that you generate. You could have a donor that says, hey, I'm gonna contribute X amount of dollars, and it's gonna sit in the foundation, it's gonna be managed as an endowment. The kickoffs of that's gonna be used to offset the expense to pay your student athletes. And then what we do is we'd set a budget for our coaches and say, you've got, I'm making numbers up, members of the media especially, I'm just making them up. Frank knows this. But like, hey, football, you've got $500,000. You've got to figure out how to manage that. Men's basketball, you've got $200,000. We haven't even talked about Title IX and how this impacts Title IX. That's a whole other forum, right? But that's a whole other topic of conversation. But is that Title IX impacted by that? Then you're going to have to equal out those things. But to answer your question, when the universities can become more involved in paying, then those strategies can be part of the solution. But right now, it's all through third-party hands-off, that type of thing.
So our table's concern is for our student athletes, student being the important word. So they're being wooed to other institutions with more money. Is there any type of process in place to help them earn their degrees?
Yes, yeah, there is. So here's what we can still do as institutions, NCAA member institutions. We can still hold fast on our eligibility requirements. We can still hold fast on our completion to degree. So many of you may not know that in order to be eligible to compete in college athletics, you have to show progress towards a degree. You just can't come here and get 130 credits in random things and then just leave. Those rules are long gone. You have to make a progress towards a degree, 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. We have to certify those student athletes each year. Well, imagine if you're transferring so much. I'm coming from some school and I was studying engineering, we'll just say, and I want to go to the University of Montana with no engineering program. How am I going to show progress towards a degree when I'm 3 years into my program? I got to show 60%. So I got to find a spot where I can fit. So there's all those rules are still in place. So one of the arguments we've always had is all this transferring is going to impact their degrees. Well, that will be data that we can show in 5 to 8 years when we show if that's the case. But right now, attorneys and lawyers don't want to hear, well, we're not just going to go at hypotheticals. Right? You're restricting their ability to earn money right now. So yes, there's a lot of talk about that. Yes, I tell our coaches this all the time. The transfer portal, collectives, NIL payment, it's dramatically changed your life. There's no doubt about it. Our coaches, I candidly feel bad for them. I mean, from the day we lost our last football game till now, it's been, I don't think our coaches have ever left that building, our football coaches, except to go home and go to sleep. But it impacts our academic advisors. It impacts our compliance people. It impacts our sports information people. It impacts our academic advisors because they're scrambling like, hey, we want to bring this kid in from this place. Can we get him eligible? Is there a degree we can get him into? And that's all part of what we've got to work through.
So our table just has some questions maybe about allocation of the resources. Marcus, you had a slide, I think, that showed some percentages by sport and between the men's programs and the women's programs. How are those allocation decisions being made?
So I'll pass over to Ken, but I'll say from the first part. So when a donor or a business wants to contribute their dollars, they can say right away, hey, I want this to go to the women's basketball team. I want this to go to the soccer team. I want this to go to the football team. So right then and there, that money's going to be put into that pot and spent on, that team. So that's kind of how that is allocated from the broad scope of it. But then if money's just put into the collective, then that kind of we just use as a department, figure out where it's best allocated. I think I'll let Ken answer that.
Yeah. No secret that football generates $6-7 million. Tennis program doesn't generate anything. I love tennis, and I love, our coaches are awesome. We don't sell a ticket to their event. Now they have donors and they have those type of things. And so what you're starting to see when it comes to revenue share, you're literally starting to see athletic departments come out. I saw Texas Tech came out with this today, that they're going to go straight percentage on whatever the percentage is that that program gets. That's the percentage of the 22 million that they're going to allocate to that program. And so really, it's driven by what Marcus said. In the collective world right now, wherever those donors want to send it, or I hate to call them donors, contributors, those people who are wanting to support it, where they want it to go. And you know, the bulk of that's going to head to football and men's and women's basketball. But I am proud to say the first team-wide NIL deal in the country for a women's sport was right here in Montana for our soccer program. So there you go.
He stole one of our questions. Hand in hand with all of this, I know part of it was COVID, but last year we had players in their 7th year of play. I know you could do a whole seminar on it, but briefly, what are the eligibility, number of years?
We're debating that right now, because see, here's the counter argument to that. I want to get a PhD. You offer a PhD. I'm making $100 grand a year playing for your basketball team. Why are you telling me I can't go get a PhD? You're willing to pay for me. Why are you telling me I only get 4 years? You offer more than 4-year degrees. So that's the counter argument that's coming back. The current eligibility. Now we've worked through COVID, and COVID was, and the years and eligibility there. You have 4 years of eligibility, and then you have a variety. If you have a red shirt year, you can get a medical waiver. You can get a lot of different waivers. The push now is you've got 5 years to play 5 and just no red shirts, no nothing. That's the talk. But the next lawsuit will be, why are you telling me? I can continue to go to your school and pursue a degree. Why can't I play for your football team or your soccer team or your tennis team? And the answer would be, well, because the organization said you can only play 4, which just doesn't carry much. But right now you got 4 years. You can play 4 with a variety of waivers.
Side note before the question, there was a lawsuit that was filed today about eligibility and how it's unconstitutional, and so we'll see what happens with that. Eligibility might disappear altogether. We were curious in sort of when you have a donor or a booster, whatever you want to call them, they give you money to earmark it for football, for example. What's the process like in terms of working with the coaches, et cetera, on how to allocate to each individual, or is that also determined by the donor or booster?
So let's just use football for example, that was your question. So when the money's in the football pot, the coach can kind of have say on where that money is going to go. I mean, at the end of the day, if the donor wanted it to go to, myself, I play football. If they wanted to go to me, then it would go to me. But if it's going to be in the football general pot, then the football coach and myself have say on kind of where that goes, and it's best used to retain our student athletes, recruit other student athletes, just kind of use it in the most strategic ways, really professional sports. When you look at the Tennessee Titans have a salary cap and they're going to spend it the best way. So if we're going to have this set dollar amount, what's the best way to be utilized?
And there has been loosening of the involvement. If you noticed, I can sit up here and I can promote good old Grizzlies and say, hey, all of you, give your money to good old Grizzlies and help support our student athletes. I think 6 months ago, I couldn't have done that. I'd have gotten written up and put in NCAA jail for that. But that's now been loosened. You see us promoted at games, you see us promote. So we can have some say in this. We just can't be involved in the payments and those type of things. But our coaches can sit down, and some coaches have the philosophy, we're going to spread this out evenly and we're going to allocate. Other coaches have this idea like, hey, I got to try and keep this one player, and this is where I want it to go. But a lot of times, and Marcus can answer this better than me, but some of it goes directly where people will say, hey, I'd really like to keep so-and-so, or I'd like to keep this player. Who's the lawsuit? What was that one?
It's in Tennessee.
Which again, just really quickly, it's part of our problem, right? We got 50 states last time I checked. What do we got? All of them can yeah. Oh, Canada's included. And Greenland, yeah. Okay, we're not going there. So all 50 of those states can set all these different rules, and they're all competing. You don't think Texas isn't watching what Florida's doing in their state legislature? Because Texas doesn't want to lose to Florida. And then Louisiana sees what Texas does, and Louisiana's coaches come and say, we got to get ahead of this. So we compete for national championships. We need national help. That would be my advocacy would be, we need the same rules right? We can go at different levels of what we want to do, but we compete for national championships. We can't have just these state one-offs, or we're in trouble. We're in trouble.
So I've been a little bit concerned when I hear about the collectives and the transparency, and I wonder, who are the collectives? Is there an MOU between the university and the collective, or can anybody just establish a collective and decide what to do? I know the foundation has an MOU with the university. Does the collective as well?
Yeah, so if anyone else wants to start their collective, you can. And so that's kind of what's the scary part too about for other schools and universities is where at the very start, everyone saw this as like, oh, I'm going to start a collective, I'm going to do this. So there's a lot of schools with like 3 or 4 collectives, and then their fans are like, well, who do I trust? Who do I send the money to? Who's doing this? I can tell you a lot of other horror stories at other schools where like, you know, they gave money to the collective and then some things didn't work out, had a bad relationship with the university and the coaches, and there's a lot of horror stories between like, you know, athletes not getting the payment they were promised from these different collectives, and so that can go on and on, but I mean, here we're passionate about like, you know, Good Old Grizzlies is the only collective supporting the University of Montana. I'm the one that's kind of like, I don't really know how I got to lead it, but now I'm the one leading it. So I guess that's my cry to say I'm trustworthy. I mean, I don't know. Like, I work with the, athletic department and coaches, every day, trying to coordinate, what's going on, working with the community, everything like that. We have a pretty good relationship here, I'd say. Hopefully he would agree to that. I just can tell you other schools don't necessarily, but sometimes, the collective that came into power at those other schools, the athletic department just has to deal with them because they're the ones with the money and they're the ones being able to pay the athletes. And if they weren't there paying the athletes, then they wouldn't win games. So then at the end of the day, they just kind of got to use them. But I think we have a pretty good relationship here.
But there's no MOU. There's not. And that, again, to see success in the future, more structure around that. The initial settlement, in the House settlement, put guardrails around collectives. We haven't even talked about fair market value. But they put the settlement, that's why the revenue share works so well, because the university then owns it and then the university can manage it. But that was one of the first things that got tossed out of that settlement was you can't put restrictions on collectives, because if we've got a collective over here that wants to pay a young lady $100,000, who are you to say they can't pay her? And so it's this restriction of trade, restriction of economic. That's what we're now talking so much about in college athletics. But we do not have an MOU, do we? No. Okay, good. I didn't think we did. No, tongue in cheek here. But we don't have an MOU, and we could have 12 collectives pop up in this valley, and we'd have to navigate around that. I don't know why that, in this case, wouldn't happen. Wouldn't be real smart. But.
Hey, me again. Interesting, I saw a segment on the TV, I think it was yesterday, about private equity firms getting into universities. And it was pretty interesting, the guy talking about it used to be a sports, owned the Milwaukee Bucks, and he said he likes to find these mid-market teams that need that boost of money and say, I mean, he was talking ridiculous numbers. He used Rutgers, for example, because the TV host was from Rutgers, and he said, hey, we could give Rutgers $100 million over 10 years and get a percentage of their revenue from merchandise, from TV rights. Has that ever been on the table? I mean, that seems like scary, getting in bed with a private equity firm, but I wonder if people are going to start doing that.
There's never been one talk of private equity at the University of Montana, and they're happy to come and look at our books and see there's not much revenue there to share. So we would, entrepreneurs jump up whenever something starts to happen. And so that would be for those, we're signing, I mean, we make maybe $100,000 off our entire television, entire television contract. It's divided equally among all the schools in this conference, which is a whole other conversation. So there is not, I mean, our biggest revenue generator is that stadium full on a Saturday afternoon, but that money's going to support so many things. So if you're private equity coming into here, my canon would be, I don't think you want to invest.
Bart Holt, Missoula community member. I competed at the collegiate level. I saw one thing that was rather interesting, and that is a lot of people that graduated, they had nothing to show for it because they really didn't apply themselves to their education. That was one issue. 2%, I saw a statistic, 2.8% of the college athletes go on to become professionals. So there is a big number that don't get that, and if they don't seriously invest their time into getting an education primarily, they're going to be very limited on what they're going to be able to do after that. Even if they did get an NIL while they competed, a lot of times once your eligibility is up, people forget about you pretty quick, and then it's kind of over. So is there going to be an emphasis into getting an education and stressing what value that is?
Absolutely, and I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy working at a university like the University of Montana, in a place like Missoula, at the level, and I hate to always keep saying at the level that we compete at, because we're a Division I institution, and our basketball teams compete for the same championship as Duke and UCLA. Our football team competes for a little different subdivision championship, but it's one of the reasons I enjoy being here and doing what I do here, is I feel like there's still that commitment to academics and commitment to being a student. I think we're in a really tumultuous time where you've got a lot of people with voices outside the student athletes chirping at them, telling them, you could do this, you could do this. And I think there's a lot of people taking advantage of student athletes that are passing them around to make money off of them as taking a part of their NIL deals. But at this level, I'm proud of the commitment to academics and athletics. We're coming off, again, record high GPAs. We're coming off, we still lead the school. We're ahead of the school as far as credits completed, degree completion, graduation rates, GPA, Dean's List. So our student athletes are doing what they need to get done, and so I feel fully committed to that. When it's not that way, it's time probably to transition to another generation of athletic administrators. So I feel strongly about that.
I have one quick question. What is the temperature of the university or universities nationally to put these kids under contract so that they don't bounce around?
I think our first goal, speaking for me now, is to not have student athletes declared employees. Let's keep them students. I think when we cross that employee mark, that's a whole different relationship. But there is some appetite for, we can sign them to multi-year financial aid agreements right now. There's really no penalty on their end for breaking that. But I think that will eventually come. But it will turn very much into an employee-employer kind of relationship, even though they won't be, hopefully won't be employees. But there is some, but then that will be a negotiation point for a student athlete. I mean, I know some schools that are telling their recruits, look, come here for 2 years, knock it out of the park, and we'll help you find a place to go make a bunch of money. That's a recruiting tactic too. And so it all depends on what those incoming students want as they come around. One thing I'll be really quick on that I think is getting lost in this is the high school student. Like you're a coach, you're building a team for this next year only. Like that's how you gotta build for the next year. And I can take a 21-year-old junior in college that's got 3 years of experience, or I can take a kid from Helena, Montana that was really good, right? And develop them and become an all-conference player. If you're a coach, I take the kid that's proven, and the high school kid is kind of lost there. But to answer your question, I think you'll see more and more of that.
My question is, with the introduction of the NIL, how has it affected the Grizzly Athletics marketing revenue budget?
Now, one thing they don't have access to is our IP, our intellectual property. So we still manage that, we still control that. That's why you will occasionally see student athletes promote things in just a maroon shirt with nothing else on. But there's been a slight impact in that. Our partnership, our multimedia rights are held by Learfield, a large company that manages a lot of multimedia rights for universities. And they've certainly had to shift how they've wanted to do things because suddenly, and I'm a proponent of NIL. Let me make sure I'm clear about that. I'm very much a proponent that student athletes should be able to, if they want to go do an autograph session at, sorry, I see Bill again, First Security Bank's opening of a new bank, they should be able to do that and get paid to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you certainly see kind of a fracturing in the marketing world where, hey, I like the IP, I like the Grizz marks, I like being in the stadium, I like doing all those kind of things. But I can also get access to maybe this talent pool that costs me a little less that can promote things social media wise, those type of things. So we're certainly seeing a change in direction from Grizzly Sports Properties, those who manage our marks, of, hey, how can I get access to athletes as well? So there's an impact, something we never had to deal with in the past.
Last call for questions.
All right, swear it's the last one. Is there any help at the U that they're offering these kids, like tax advice? I've heard that that's a big issue of, like, you know, you get this lump of money, guys go blow it, and you're essentially, I guess it goes to your employer-employee relationship, but I would assume those guys have to pay taxes on it, and if no one is educating them on, hey, you're probably gonna have to pay half of this because you're basically a 1099, I feel like you're almost setting these kids up for failure of, I'm gonna blow 100 grand and now I owe 50 the next year. Is there services that you guys are putting in place to help those guys?
Yeah, so currently, fortunately, I guess for the guys, I'm also a financial advisor, so I try helping them understand, like, you're gonna pay tax on this, so we work with a lot of withhold, like, hey, we're just gonna withhold this percentage of it just because you're gonna have to pay taxes on it. Some of the athletes who are making a little bit more money, we actually help them set up businesses so they can have business expense kind of come out of there with that, and then also, you know, taxes with that. So, yes, we are helping them with taxes. At the end of the day, we would love to get to the point where we're paying all our athletes enough where taxes kind of become an issue where we got to worry about that. But at this time of day, when someone's making, you know, $200, not really much of a tax liability there. But some of the athletes who are making a little bit more, we definitely try taking care of them and helping them understand. Because, yeah, I mean, that's what's funny is some of these athletes, you tell them, like, hey, you're going to make this much money, and then you explain the taxes, and it's the first time they've thought about that and had it happen, their head explodes, like, they're taking how much from me? But I'm only going to make, I'm supposed to make that much, though, and then you have to explain to them, well, no, Uncle Sam gets their part of it. So that's been fun, but, you know, it's good learning experience for them.
I don't know if you remember the freshman class you have as a student athlete. The curriculum, we have a freshman class that runs for all of our new freshmen the students that come in, and it runs a year long. It's a kind of a life skills class. We've dramatically changed the curriculum. And it evolves around managing money, it evolves around managing your own name, image, your likeness, all those type of things. And so, yeah, there's a whole section on how to manage, how you hold yourself not only in public, we've always talked about that, but how you deal with some of this financial planning. Is that it? So thank you so much. I know this becomes a convoluted web of craziness, and we can sit here and lament the old days. And I love the rotary phone, but the rotary phone's gone. And so I've got to shift to this right now. So we can sit and wring hands, but you know, I think what's going to be a definition of success here for the University of Montana and what we want to do. So here are our goals. We want to make sure we're continuing to compete at the highest level we possibly can. I can foresee a day when there's a shift and there's the big people that have got a lot of money and competing here. We want to make sure that we're relevant. We're the university of a state. We're only one of 50 states. We're relevant to this region, relevant to this economy. And we talked about the economic impact we have. So we want to make sure we're competing at the highest level that we can in an economically sustainable way. We also want to make sure that we're competing for national championships, right? Access to national championships is key to us. We want to make sure that our tennis team, our soccer team, our volleyball team, our basketball teams get chances to compete at the national level and showcase what Montana is all about. That's important for us too. And we want to continue to grow our budget, grow our economics, and shift the way maybe we do things in trying to accomplish all those goals. But that's what we want to do. And we want to make sure that we're relevant, and we want to make sure that we are leading when it comes to this. A lot of people look, a lot of schools look and say, what's Montana doing? And we want to make sure we continue to do that.
With that, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you so much for attending. Thanks to Kent and Marcus for participating. Stay tuned. Our February forum is still currently under development. Check back at cityclubmissoula.com or on our Facebook or Instagram pages for any developments. Appreciate it very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Very good to sit next to you. Oh, yeah, I love this.